Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Cavalier. A great episode, a great season finale. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode. Obviously, it's kind of interesting because I feel like this is the most serious toned episode. Like, obviously, it still had its humor and its jokes, but overall, it was kind of a very serious toned episode. But I did, even at the beginning, you get, that whole Frankie and Will being cute and adorable, I'm going to pack some underwear. She's like, I'm not going to wear your underwear. He's like, yes, you are. And then doing the whole coin thing with the beard. It's like, oh, you don't know how to do this because you didn't have a college experience and stuff like that. She's like, you think that was sexy? It wasn't. He's like, yes, it was. She's like, okay, maybe a little under her breath. I like that. But it's just I love that it's at that point where it's just kind of we're not even trying anymore. You're all flirty and stuff. It's so adorable. I even love it later on when he's like, are you okay? And he's like, are you warm? And she's like, are you cold? And she's like, no, I'm good. And he's like, you're wearing the underwear, aren't you? She's like, I'm not going to answer that. But obviously everything was them set up on a mission to go after Alderman, and they got Paul. At first I was like, who's Paul? Didn't click on my head. I was like, right. Paul's from the episode a few episodes back where it's the agent that was undercover, with the fake marriage and relationship. But it's at the end, him and, his fiance and his wife end up really falling in love. So I thought, oh, that was cool. I was hoping he wouldn't die at the beginning. I was like, okay, he's good. He sadly got his teeth knocked out. It's sad too because they were so close to getting Alderman, but Tina came back just in time to hear from Standish we're closing in on Alderman, so she was able to warn him. So sadly he was able to get away. Paul ended up getting his teeth fixed. So it's just kind of a combination of just many different things happening. You have the whole situation with Ray being like, oh man, just admit that you kind of like me, Susan. And she's like, I don't. And he's like, the fact is we sleep together. She's like, those are two separate things. Even later on when it's oh, look at Frankie and Will. It's like, oh, look at you two. You're kind of being adorable. It's me and Will made a decision that we won't, go down that route. They'll keep it professional because it might interfere with the work. And Susan being like, oh, come on. You just got to kind of give in to fate sometimes. Stuff's just going to happen regardless. And that does kind of start, getting freaking thinking about that whole situation. But I do like the adorable thing of Ray and Susan are having their moment and everything, and they're making out, and then Jay walks in on it. He's like, ew, this is gross. And it's just kind of this weird, awkward situation. It's okay, fine. You're going to tell Will, right? He's like, you got to tell Will. And Susan's like, yeah, I know. It's either you tell Will or you can end this. And he's like, are you going to end this? She's like, and Ray's like, no. She wants to say yes, but we're not ending this. So it's you got to tell Will. She's like, I know. All the while, everything with, Standish. Now, this is the most crazy way to find out about Tina. Well, I'll kind of break everything down. I love that old couple circling back around. I'm like, that's interesting. And they end up pulling out the guns. I was like, I shouldn't be too surprised. Because it is kind of interesting. Literally all season, no one's made the mistake of walking in or treating it like a real bar. They just happen to walk in there. I was like, that's definitely interesting. But I didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, that's going to be, I guess that's a little bit of a bit or something. They'll come back later on. And it's no, they were there. You wouldn't expect old people like that with machine guns and everything. I guess that's the whole point. They look unsuspecting. A combination of Paul jumping down to take down the old lady and Jay with the old shotgun that was there. I love, what was it, Susan being like, how can you not tell us that was there? He's like, really? You want to have this conversation about secrets right now? After your big secret and everything? I love it. But like I said, finding out about Tina and everything, that's kind of a hard blow. It's oh yeah, your girlfriend sucks. And it's yep, I'm starting to figure that out. And, sadly, Paul ended up dying. That sucks. Because you can almost tell, the moment you see everyone lined up, you're like, Paul's there to be the sacrificial lamb, isn't he? I was like, I hope not. It's oh, he injects Ray. I'm like, okay, it's good. But it's oh, test run. I'm like, you're about to get it. It's actually kind of interesting when you actually think about this. It's kind of interesting because obviously Lauren Cohen played Maggie in The Walking Dead. Very, not the same, but a similar situation with the whole Negan situation at the end of season 6 when you actually break that down and think about it like that. It just crossed my mind tonight. I didn't even think about that till just then, but I guess you can make the argument. Well, spoilers. I won't say who specifically. Obviously, if you haven't caught up with The Walking Dead or haven't seen it, but nevertheless, it's I guess in this sense it'd be oh yeah, he just got Negan'd to a certain extent, especially because it does stuff with your head and brains and stuff like that. The machines inside your head is oh, they get inside your brain and stuff like that. And obviously one of the particular kills by Negan and Lucille technically both get bloody and brainy, but nevertheless, that's me going on a huge tangent, but nevertheless, it's like, it's sad, and Paul's being like, tell my wife I love her. It's like, dude, come on, you two had your happy ending. It's like, even with the lies and stuff, everything worked out, and just for them to do that, it's like, oh, come on, make it some faceless agent that we didn't know. It makes it even sadder because you did it like that. Jesus, dude. You know, now they have to work with Alderman if they plan on saving Ray, who's been injected with the same thing. I also love the whole situation of, it turns out that Tina and Alderman are a couple, and then you have Standish being like, really? And Frankie's like, gross. You even see like a little twinge in like Will's eyes being like, ew. It's just, that's gotta suck. You know, even more for Standish. And the real kick in the teeth later on, because for him it's like, no, I know the real you. The fact of the matter is, what happened between us, you can't fake that. But she's like, oh yeah, you want to know, you talking about, you know the real me? I'm the one that killed Emma. I watched her bleed out in the streets. I'm going to do the same thing to you. It's like, part of me was wondering, like, were they going to potentially use that later on to be like, oh yeah, that maybe Tina has a potential redemption arc or something like that. Maybe she has, you know, maybe it turns out, oh, she really did have feelings for Standish, and it turns into this whole terrible thing. But it's like, no. The fact is that she was able to kind of do all that terrible stuff, even killing Emma, and then kind of kick it like, oh, I'm glad to be a part of the group and the family. Kind of showed you kind of how hardcore into this situation. I mean, to be fair, she was, you know, in a relationship with Alderman, so it's like that's where her true love was. So it's like this was just all part of an assignment. I mean, to be fair, I guess they've actually been foreshadowing this for a long time, because remember the episode where Standish had such an issue with the fact that she might have to do something with, yeah, so it's like this was actually foreshadowing this like for a long time coming. I didn't even think about it until now. It's like, geez. But the whole point is like they're trying to steal money, because Alderman wasn't able to get the money from the deal, because obviously the deal at the beginning was a whole setup thing. So I do like, it's almost kind of like a little bit of a heist situation. I like, you know. I also love, like, you know, Susan takes his opportunity to tell Will the truth, and he's like, oh yeah, about you and Ray sleeping together. She's like, you knew? He was like, yeah, I'm a spy. I was hoping on everything that when he says that, you'd find out the truth is like, oh, Frankie told him. It's like, but I knew Frankie probably would, because it's like, well, she's not the gossiping type, but also it's like, that's their business. If she's going to tell Will, she has to tell Will herself, you know? So, but I like that. But she's like, are you mad at me for him? It's like, no, the fact of the matter is, I knew the moment you started liking Ray that you would tell me. She's like, what? I don't like Ray. It's like, she's like, but you're really not mad? And he's like, no, I'm not. You know, you sleeping with Ray is punishment of it. She's like, you know, kind of like rolling her eyes to a certain extent, because it's like, it's so interesting because she tears down Ray, but she doesn't like it when everyone's kind of like it's kind of a bad thing that me and Ray. It's like, I love that whole situation. Luckily they were able to make the switch with the suitcase. I also love this conversation between Susan and Frankie. Frankie's like, you know, if we really did fight, I think it'd be pretty close. Susan's like, really? You wish. Fact is, if we really fought, I'd totally kick your ass. I'm like, I love the confidence. And I also love Ray and Will working together, and that last dude, Ray, comes and knocks him out, and he's like, I saved your life. He's like, yeah, you sure did, Ray. Thanks, buddy. It's like, yeah, after Will pretty much took down everybody else, you literally were just struggling with that one guy, I think, the entire fight. And like, Will took down everybody else, but it's like, yep, you saved my life, buddy. And he's like, yeah, so proud of himself and everything. So it is interesting. Obviously, it seems Alderman's plan is going into motion. It is a situation of like, it is more than just, oh, he's robbing people. The plan is to take this money, because they're going to assassinate like someone higher ups, just so that they can start a war, because this is bigger than just money to a certain extent. Money makes the world go around in a sense. So it's like war, you know, war will end with profit. Chaos begets war, which begets profit. And that's kind of the whole point, is that they'll come in, you know, and kind of create a new world order. It's kind of like what they're aiming for with this whole situation. So Tina's supposed to go assassinate him, and lo and behold, who's behind a chair? Freaking Standish. I love that, because I figured if it was going to be anyone, because I thought Will was going to be I guess the reason why Standish didn't want to say anything, because he knew if Will found out that it was her specifically, he, you know, I think for him, he felt a little guilty, because it's like, the woman I love that I kind of brought into this situation to a certain extent is the person that killed your girlfriend. My girlfriend killed your girlfriend, and that's a whole mess. So I think that's what was kind of, you know, keeping him back. But I guess he figured if he also, Well, because he's dealing with Alderman, but I think if he knew that Tina, the person who actually pulled the trigger, was right in front of him, things would be a little bit of a different conversation, because we know what happened when Will kind of thought he was after the person that killed him in the first place, like he kind of went rogue and everything, so there's that. But I think it was kind of befitting, because for, Tina made the whole point of, like, the reason why she chose Standish is because he was the one that wasn't an actual spy. He doesn't have it in him, so he was the easiest to manipulate. And it's just kind of sad in the long run, because it's like, oh, things are good, and it's like, oh, consider your ass dumped after he killed her. I was like, yeah, I think it's better that it kind of ended this way, because it had to be Standish to kind of do it, because I'm sure for him it's also like, oh, I'm making up for the terrible thing that she did while she was my girlfriend, type of situation. So, but the whole plan is to, keep the thing, at least some of the things inside of Ray's head, around. So keep at least a few so they can track Alderman. And obviously Will wasn't okay with this, but Ray was like, no, this is my decision. And because this could be a situation where he could end up dying, Will was like, you know what? I know you've been trying to, patch things up between us. And he's like, hey, we're good, right? And Will's like, we're good. And they're handshaking. It would have been dope if Ray, the moment his back was turned, Will's back was turned, Ray did the thing of, like, getting super pumped up, but he didn't. So I think that shows how much he's grown as well. But also, Jay being like, Susan, you need to take this time to tell Ray how you feel. She's like, what? I don't. And it's so sweet because, Susan's made it clear, like, the reason why she is the way she is, too, is because, because obviously she's very, like, psychological about a lot of things. It kind of caused her issues growing up with her siblings. And obviously kind of coming from a divorce situation and stuff like that, which we never really dived too much into. We dived a little bit into it. But for her, she finally tells Ray the truth. I know you love Jay being like, the fact is I'm doing this because I've actually kind of grown fond of him. Because I love earlier, like, he's like, Ray was like, I'm glad we're friends. And Jay's like, I never said... Yeah, I'm glad we are too. I'm like, oh, but because Jay is like, actually, I've kind of grown fond of him, and I'm kind of rooting for the two of you. So Susan finally tells him the truth. She's like, okay, Ray, I really, really like you, and if you die, I'll be very, very mad at you. And she's like, see, are you happy now? He's like, yeah. You're finally admitting how you like it. And then she's like, just don't make a big deal out of it and everything. It's so cute and adorable, Luckily, Ray was able to survive the situation, and they were able to find Alderman. I was kind of hoping Will would kill him, just because after everything. But it's like, no, they need to bring him in because they need to bring down this whole trust situation. So it makes sense that they wouldn't kill him, but still. I did like that Frankie was like, do you really think he changed me that much? And Alderman's kind of like, oh, don't let someone write your story, write it yourself, your own ending, and jumps out the window. So there's that situation. But luckily, when it's all said and done, it's like, oh, like I said, Ray's good. It's like, oh, he's waking up in a hospital, everything's good. I love the whole thing of like, oh, Susan's like, could you give me a moment? And Jay's like, oh, I think that she wants a moment alone with Ray. And then Stan's been like, why? Oh, ugh, that's gross. But we also do have like the whole Frankie and Will situation, an old conversation about fate and everything, like wanting to enjoy the sites because as their job, they only just get to go there, places, own missions and stuff. He's like, I want to enjoy Prague without any, otherness, without my gun in my hand. And the moment that's there, I'm like, Frankie, and I'm like, oh, something's about to happen. It's like, there's no way they're going to end it on kind of a happy note. There's no way in hell. And I was like, oh, it seems like they're about to, but no, then we hard cut the standards. I'm like, oh, what's about to happen here? This is about to, and then lo and behold, turns out Alderman. I don't know how the hell you faked a fall from that. I guess maybe he had a body ready ahead of time because he knew that they were on the way potentially that were tracking him. Because it does seem interesting that he would just be waiting there. So he'd already set that in motion. I guess maybe he had a parachute or maybe he had clung to the side of the building. I don't know how you did that Houdini shit that you did, but somehow managed to do that. And he stabbed Standish because it's like, oh, this is for killing my girlfriend. So the thing is, it was also interesting too because it's something I brought up before because it seemed like they're kind of putting it look like, oh, like, Alderman's the top of the trust and stuff like that. He's the head of it, so basically cut off his head, the body will fall. But I don't think he's the head of it. I still kind of treat him as like, oh, he's just kind of like maybe a top-ranking dude, if not even that. But I don't think he's like the head of the whole situation. I think he's just part of it. Maybe he's part of like an inner circle. Maybe he's trying to work his way up into the inner circle of the trust. But either way, kind of a pretty crazy cliffhanger. Sadly, Whiskey Cavalier has been canceled. I kind of, someone had hit me up and kind of told me about that, and I read some stuff about that. I was looking it up, hoping that, hey, maybe something happened in between then to kind of change things, but currently where things stand, the show has been canceled. I am hopeful, because it seems like, hey, maybe there's potential for the show to potentially come back, and maybe just on a different network, because it doesn't seem like ABC's going to change their mind. Very few networks change their mind. There's a few rare occasions, but not that often. So I am hopeful that someone does pick this up, whether it be like another network or maybe even a full-blown, a streaming site, whether it be a Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, whatever the case may be. Like I said, there's like, from what I was reading, there's, a whole hashtag coming of like, save Whiskey Cavalier, which is like, I hope they do. This is such a great show. It's kind of like a fun, fun action comedy spy drama, which obviously does a very good job. Like, it's a great cast of characters. Love these characters, and I'd love to see where a second season would take us with them. Obviously, like continuing this whole situation with the trust. Like, we got a little bit here and there, but I feel like the second season will take us even further down that route. Obviously, hopefully it's not a situation of like, oh, we're killing off Standish. Obviously, I think it's meant to be a cliffhanger like that, but I think Standish will be okay, hopefully. Dive even deeper into some of the characters, like, a lot of stuff from Frankie's past. I'm surprised it never actually came back up, but I'm super surprised we never saw Gigi again. So I think that potentially could be something, and that complicated nature of like, oh yeah, his ex pops up, especially when things between him and, Frankie could be potentially going somewhere. Maybe we cut away from it, but it's like we as the audience may never know whether they kissed or not, but maybe Will and Frankie are kind of awkward around each other or something like that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just hoping that the show just gets a second chance because it deserves it, because it's such a good show. It's so fun, but even with the fun side, it still tells a very compelling story and kind of gets you entangled in everything, the story and the characters. It has a very nice drama side to it. It's like, it's just a all-around fun spy show that I'd love to see more of. So I am really hoping and pushing for the show to get a second life, So I'd love to see what they would do with the second season if given a chance. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.